Part 33. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 321. The star spirit body, which was attracted and entangled by those monsters, was trembling slightly, and the light of the spirit body became dimmed little by little. Suddenly, the monster attached to the star spirit body that Xiaopingan was observing suddenly turned its head, revealing a pair of scarlet eyes, and looked towards Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan's gaze just now seemed to have made that the monster absorbing the star spirit body felt it. Not good. Xiaopingan didn't expect that kind of monster to be so sensitive to gaze. The moment the monster turned its head, Xiaopingan quickly turned away from his eyes and fell to the ground. His body rolled sideways on the ground, and the soil beneath his feet he rolled down the slope, his body rolling rapidly against the ground like a wheel, and rolled directly to the depression of the slope more than 30 meters away, motionless. The thick grey fog rolled around, hiding Xiaopingan's figure in the thick fog. An invisible force, with violent anger, suddenly descended from the sky, like a sickle, sweeping away a large area of grey fog near where Xiaopingan had just been hiding, revealing the barren and desolate ground. The thick fog that was swept away rolled and dispersed a few meters away from Xiaopingan's side. Pushing a few meters further to the side, Xiaopingan's figure would be revealed in the thick grey fog. Seeing that there was nothing on the ground, the monster in the sky stared at it for a few times, then turned its head and continued to attach to the star spirit body. Xiaopingan lay on the ground for a long time. When the thick fog around him filled the air, he stood up. He only glanced at the sky with his peripheral vision without looking at the sky. Then he covered his body with the thick fog and slowed down. He stopped his steps and left here step by step. After walking a little further, he continued to run wildly, rushing towards the direction of Muling Fort under the cover of grey mist. There are so many secrets in the spiritual world. And this spiritual world is as dangerous as I guessed before. The monster in the sky just now made Xiaopingan feel dangerous, extremely dangerous. After rushing in the wilderness for a while, Xiaopingan saw the slope where he found the shepherd Suju. Then at this moment, just for a moment, the surrounding grey fog suddenly dissipated, and Xiaopingan's figure suddenly disappeared. The child was exposed in the wilderness, and the wind howled in the sky. Xiaopingan turned his head and saw the monster that was attached to the star spirit body, twisting its body of more than 30 meters long, like a wild python. Jumped directly towards him from the sky, his blood-red eyes stared at him, obviously he had discovered himself. Damn it, this monster was deliberately letting down his guard just now, trying to lure himself out. Now that he had been discovered and was in the wilderness, Xiaopingan didn't even think about it. He used all his strength and his maximum speed to rush directly towards Muling Fort. The monster in the sky also accelerated all of a sudden, its black body emitting red light, and accelerated towards Xiaopingan. In 2 minutes, the monster had already rushed to Xiaopingan's head. Just tens of meters in the air, the monster's body dived and rushed towards Xiaopingan. When it rushed to a height less than 10 meters above the ground, the monster opened its mouth, and several streaks of black energy, like arrows, were shot towards Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan rolled on the ground to avoid it, and those black energy shot onto the ground. With the sound of shishi, several large holes were corroded in the ground. Xiaopingan was like a cheetah, bouncing on the ground with lightning speed and continuing to run wildly. The monster spit black air at Xiaopingan twice, but Xiaopingan avoided it. The next second, the monster seemed to be a little anxious. Its snake-like body suddenly expanded in the air, and red light flashed. Accelerating violently, the spear-like forelimbs grabbed Xiaopingan's back directly from the air, and the huge tail, like a snake, drew in the direction where Xiaopingan could avoid it. But Xiaopingan's reaction was beyond the monster's expectations. At the moment when the monster accelerated its dive attack, Xiaopingan's body suddenly jumped up from the ground, and kicked the ground with force, and the ground was covered with force. After stepping into a shallow pit, Xiaoping's body suddenly deviated from its original direction, flipped backwards, and jumped up. The monster's two attacks missed at the same time, but Xiaoping suddenly flew over the monster's head, and the height of the two changed instantly. With a sound of clang, Shepherd Xiaoping's long sword came out of his body, streaking a cold light in the air. The long sword had been there for who knows how many years. Although it looked a little rusty, it was still sharp. Xiaoping used the long sword in his hand to cut off one of the two suction cup-like tentacles on the monster's head with a single blow. Then he rolled his body in the air and rode directly on the monster's head with great dexterity. The back of the neck is equivalent to 7 inches of the snake's body. The monster let out an unpleasant, ear-piercing scream, and its body trembled violently, almost hitting the ground. "I'll let you squirt." Xiaoping's feet clamped tightly on the monster's neck, like a flying roller coaster, riding firmly on the monster's neck, and the long sword in his hand moved once again with a swing. He cut off the other tentacle on the other side of the monster's head. The monster's body rolled, twitched, and rushed toward the sky. Xiaoping gritted his teeth and tried to pierce the monster's head with his long sword, but found that the long sword in his hand could not pierce the monster's scales at all. Every time he stabbed the sword in his hand, sparks were drawn on the monster's body. It seems that only the tentacles on the monster's head are weak points and can be cut off by the long sword in its hand. The sword cannot pierce other parts of the monster's body. Seeing that the monster was about to rush into the sky, Xiaoping turned over, jumped off the monster's neck, landed on the ground, rolled a few times to release all the strength from his body, and then continued to run towards the direction of Muling Fort. At this moment, the shadowy outline of Muling Fort appeared in Xiaoping's sight. Another strange cry came from the sky. Xiaoping looked back and saw the monster flying into the air again. After getting rid of him, it rushed towards him viciously. The two tentacles on the monster's head had just been cut off by himself, but in just a short while, the two tentacles on the monster's head actually grew back. Holy shit! How to fight this? Xiaoping could only run towards Muling Fort, using up all his strength. Not only that, several other monsters in the sky seemed to be alarmed, and flew towards Xiaoping together. The number of monsters chasing Xiaoping increased from 1 to 4. A few minutes later, Xiaoping rolled and crawled and once again avoided several corrosive black energy attacks. However, he could no longer avoid the tail bombardment of another monster that suddenly rushed out from the side and could only roar. With a sound, he slashed the tail with his long sword. The long sword drew a streak of sparks in the air, and Xiaoping was sent flying more than 20 meters away by a huge force. Xiaoping's whole body was shaken violently, as if his whole body was about to fall apart. He vomited blood and found that what he vomited out in the spirit world was golden blood. The feeling of pain was the same as the real body. After spitting out 2 mouthfuls of golden blood, Xiaoping felt that his body suddenly became weaker. The breath of death is approaching quickly. Xiaoping stood up from the ground, not daring to stay for half a second. While vomiting blood, he gritted his teeth and ran towards Muling Fort. At this most critical moment, Xiaoping discovered that the two monsters chasing him were suddenly startled and stopped chasing at the same time. As if they encountered something frightening, they turned around and flew back at the same time. Then, Xiaoping saw a tall stone man rushing out of the door of Muling Fort in front of him. The stone man held a sledgehammer, blue light flashed in his eyes, and he strode towards the place where he was. The stone man had an aura of vast ancient power, and each one was mysterious and blue. Runes flashed on the stone man's body. A monster chasing him didn't seem to be reconciled, and still bit Xiaoping fiercely. The stone man was angry, and made a thunderous sound in his mouth, shouting out the word thunder that shook all directions. The blue runes on his body suddenly lit up, and he raised the huge weapon in his hand hundreds of meters away. Warhammer. A blue lightning bolt suddenly fell from the void and struck the unwilling monster, causing the monster to fall from the air to the ground, and a large piece of its scales fell off. Before the monster could get up again, the stone man had already rushed forward, raised the warhammer in his hand high again, yelled the word hammer in his mouth, and then hit the monster on the head with the hammer. The ground shook, as if a heavy bomb had fallen on the ground. Where the monster's head was, a large crater was made directly by the giant hammer of the stone man, and the monster's head was shattered. The monster's body did not heal anymore, but turned into black mist and dissipated little by little in front of Xiaoping's eyes. In the end, in the black mist, only a fist-sized flashing golden light was left floating in the air. The stone man opened his mouth, sucked the golden light into his mouth, and swallowed it directly. Not sure if it was an illusion, but Xiaoping felt that after the stone man swallowed the golden light, the flashing runes on his body became brighter, and some of the cracks on the stone man's body were quietly repaired. Seeing this scene, the monsters in the sky flew further, not daring to get close to the shepherding fort. The stone man in the wilderness raised the giant hammer in his hand and roared at the monster in the sky. Xiaoping struggled to stand up, and spit out another mouthful of golden blood. As soon as the blood was spit out, it instantly turned into mist and dissipated. Xiaoping's body seemed to be a little weaker, and he was a little unsteady. The tall stone man strode up to Xiaoping, half knelt down on one leg, then stretched out his big hand, carefully grabbed Xiaoping, put Xiaoping on his shoulders as broad as a stone table, and sat down. Holding the stone hammer, he stood up, turned around and strode towards the shepherding castle. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 322. Bang 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 bang. The tall stone statue walked into the gate passage of Shepherding Castle with heavy steps. As soon as they entered Muling Fort, the stone statue put Xiaoping down from his shoulders. After arriving at Muling Castle, Xiaoping felt a little better. At least he no longer vomited blood. His body gradually recovered, but he felt a little weak. Why is the blood coughed up by my body golden? Xiaoping didn't know. He guessed that maybe this was the physical characteristic that allowed him to enter the spirit world. Vomiting blood was not a good thing anyway, and after vomiting blood, the feeling of weakness in the body was too obvious. Xiaoping rested against the passage door of the castle, panting, and slowly recovered. At this time, he discovered that the stone statue that brought him back to the castle did not return to his place. Instead, he walked with heavy steps and silently to another stone statue that had a broken hand and looked a little broken. In front of him, he stretched out a hand and pressed it on the stone statue. Gloomy blue runes appeared on the bodies of the two stone statues at the same time. The runes on the stone statue that saved Xiaoping were bright and dazzling, while the runes on the broken stone statue were relatively dim, and the number of runes floating on the body was also smaller. The stone statue that saved Xiaoping opened its mouth, and a little golden light flew out of the stone statue's mouth like a firefly, falling on the somewhat broken stone statue, and was absorbed by the broken stone statue. There are two more runes, and the blue runes are slightly brighter. At the same time, the brilliance of the stone statue that saved Xiaoping dimmed slightly. Looking at the scene in front of him, Xiaoping was stunned. Is that stone statue rescuing other stone statues here or rescuing his companions? The little bit of golden light like fireflies that flew out from the mouth of the stone statue was very similar to the ball of golden light left on the monster that was killed just now, except that one was larger and the other smaller. The next actions of the stone statue that saved Xiaoping confirmed Xiaoping's guess. In the next few minutes, the stone statue kept repeating the scene just now, and kept walking to other mutilated and silent stone statues, holding its hands. Place it on the other stone statues, then open its mouth and let a little firefly-like golden light fall on the other stone statues. The runes on the stone statues that absorbed the golden light flashed and seemed to regain a little vitality. After doing all this, the stone statue silently returned to its position, holding the giant hammer in its hand without moving, and the entire Muling fort returned to silence. At this time, Xiaopingan felt much better. Thinking of the purpose of coming here, Xiaopingan touched the trace of golden blood remaining at the corner of his mouth. His face regained its determination, and he turned around and walked towards the fortress. Passing through the passage at the entrance of the fortress and the cold small square filled with coffins and corpses, and turning into the corridor of the inner fort, Xiaopingan quickly arrived at the pastoral hall on the second floor of the castle, and stood on the black blocks again, in front of the stone monument. This time, I should be able to learn the skills of these pastors. Xiaopingan thought in his mind, took a deep breath to calm down, then stretched out his hand, spread his fingers, and placed his hand on the depression in the middle of the stone tablet with the words Dream Enlightenment written on it. Just for an instant, a strange energy came from the black stone tablet and entered Xiaopingan's body through his palm, giving him a feeling of electric shock. Xiaopingan closed his eyes, his whole body trembling slightly. The complete secret method of dream entrustment appeared in Xiaopingan's mind, and merged with Xiaopingan's body and consciousness. Just like Xiaopingan's instinct that he had practiced for thousands of years, he quickly mastered it completely. Less than 3 minutes later, Xiaopingan's body trembling gradually subsided. He suddenly opened his eyes, exhaled a long breath, and took a step back slightly. So strong, Xiaopingan murmured to himself, it turns out that those stars are indeed the spirits of advanced beings in the material world. The dream theory is true. The great thing about this dream-telling technique is that as long as you can lock and find the other party's star spirit body, once the other party falls asleep, you can use the dream-telling method to communicate and deliver messages to the other party in the dream, completely ignoring the distance, and magically unconsciously. After learning the dream technique, Xiaopingan came to the stone tablet of dream puppet technique, stretched out his hand and pressed it on the dream puppet technique stone tablet. This time it was the same as last time. In just a few minutes, Xiaopingan had completely integrated and mastered the dream puppet technique. When he opened his eyes, Xiaopingan was finally sure that the dream demon's method of controlling others was dream puppetry. The ability of dream puppetry allows the shepherd to influence other people's spiritual bodies when they are dreaming, so that they can unknowingly plant puppet seeds in other people's subconscious and make others become your puppets. When some external conditions appear, the person controlled by the dream puppetry seems to be in a dream. His personal autonomy is stripped away, and he completely loses the ability to control and perceive his own body, and becomes a puppet, doing what you want him to do. Anything. In the next 10 minutes or so, Xiaopingan learned and mastered the fusion of spirit-seeking technique, dream creation technique, nightmare-slaying sword in one breath. The spirit-searching technique allows the shepherd to locate the spirit body he is looking for in the vast sea of spiritual bodies and stars. Dream-making brings people into a specific dream without knowing it. This kind of dream is like some kind of powerful illusion, but it is more magical and powerful than illusion. It can create emotions in people's minds and consciousness. Create an illusion in it, so that people who fall into it don't know that they are in a dream. It is worth mentioning that the dream-making technique can not only be performed in the spiritual world, but can also be performed even after leaving the spiritual world. The last thing Xiaopingan learned was the nightmare-slaying sword. The nightmare-slaying sword was a combat technique used by pastors to kill nightmare insects. The duty of the shepherds is to protect the spiritual bodies and stars in the spiritual world from the nightmare insects. The spiritual bodies in the sky are the sheep herded by the shepherds. The monsters that were chasing Xiaopingan before and were wrapped around the spiritual stars were the nightmare insects. Once the star spirit body is entangled by the nightmare insect, it will enter a terrible nightmare. The nightmare insect will devour and absorb the energy of the star spirit body in the nightmare, just like a parasite, and at the same time convert the energy of the star body into breathe out the negative energy of fear, hatred, depression, sadness, etc. that appears in nightmares. And those spiritual energies are the foundation of all life. Once those energies are exhausted, the physical body will have nothing to rely on and will definitely collapse. Ordinary people think that the physical body is the container of the spiritual body. In fact, they are completely wrong. Everyone's spiritual body is the container of the physical body. The spiritual body is like a magnet, and the physical body is just something attracted by this magnet. Once the magnet is lost, without magnetism, this attachment and attraction would not exist. Those spiritual stars are the containers of the physical body. After integrating and mastering these skills, Xiaoping'an also had a lot of information about the spiritual world and the shepherd in his head. There are also different levels of pastors. Among the levels of pastors, Xiaoping'an can only come into contact with 3 levels now, namely junior pastors, intermediate pastors, and senior pastors. Among these 3 above, there are higher level pastors, but Xiaoping'an cannot yet access the information about those higher level pastors. The improvement of the shepherd's level is closely related to the shepherd's responsibilities. The most critical one is to look at the number of spiritual bodies that the shepherd guards. In addition, the pastoral skills he learned and mastered in the pastoral hall today can also be continuously improved at different levels. As long as the pastoral level can be improved, he will have the opportunity to enter a higher level. A higher level shepherd's castle has the qualifications to master the secret techniques of a higher level shepherd. The skills that pastors can master are by no means limited to the 5 skills in front of them. At the same time, there are not only the kind of nightmare insects that I encountered today, but there are also higher level nightmare insects and even nightmare demons. The shepherd and the nightmare worm are natural enemies. Devouring the shepherd can make the nightmare worm stronger, and the shepherd can continuously make himself stronger by killing the devouring nightmare worm. By the way, in the spiritual world, the most important thing is soul power. The golden light that the stone statue swallowed after killing the nightmare insect just now was the soul power of the nightmare insect. The real name of the stone statue is Linbao guards. Linbao guards are the best companions of the shepherds and are also the strong force that protects the shepherd's castle. After mastering the nightmare-slaying sword, Xiaoping'an could clearly sense the state and amount of soul power in his body. There is no specific quantitative unit that can measure soul power. However, Xiaoping'an can use the nightmare-slaying sword spell to measure the amount of soul power in his body at this moment. His soul power at this moment can release nightmare-slaying sword. Sword needs to activate the soul power in his body, and use skills to activate the released soul power. Over time, it will return to his body by itself, just like the body is recovering on its own. His current body can release the dream-slaying sword a little more than 4 times. It is a bit reluctant to release it 5 times. If you want to measure how much soul power he has at the moment, it can barely be measured by 4.5 cuts. After understanding this, Xiaoping'an did not stay in Muling Fort for long, but quickly left Muling Fort. Just now, he was chased like a dog by those nightmare insects and almost died. Now that he has the nightmare-slaying sword in hand, Xiaoping'an can't wait to find those nightmare insects to test the sword and settle the score. Almost at the same time that Xiaoping'an left Muling Castle and stepped into the billowing grey fog again, in another place in the spirit world, the terrifying nightmare insects that had just been chasing Xiaoping'an were appearing in the same place in the spirit world. The figures in the figure were flying and circling in front of them. What, you saw another person in the spirit world? It's impossible. After using the insect language to understand what those nightmare insects wanted to express, the figure almost thought that those nightmare insects were playing tricks on him. He shouted directly. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 323. The man standing in front of the 3 nightmare insects was an elderly man. The old man has silver hair and a silver beard. He is wearing a white robe. His hair and beard are meticulous and neat, exuding an exquisite aura. At first glance, the old man's face seems kind and kind. Only if you look closely can you find out those eyes exuded endless ferocity and deceit. At the same time, there were two long blood-colored snake-shaped lines flying into the temples from the corners of the eyes, which looked a little more ferocious that was difficult to conceal. If Xiaopinggan were here and saw the old man's face, he would definitely exclaim, because except for the two bloody snake-shaped lines at the corners of his eyes, the old man's face was the same as what Xiaopinggan had seen before at Tianyuan Bridge. The other person who arrived was almost exactly the same, and that person was Master Shuiyu, the famous dream diviner in Tianyuan Bridge. In Xiaopinggan's eyes, Master Shuiyu was just a failed summoner, a gangster who knew how to interpret dreams and then went to the capital to deceive people in the name of a dream diviner. There are many, many such liars and bastards in the entire Shangjing city. Seeing the information revealed by the twisting bodies of the three nightmare insects, the old man's eyebrows suddenly knitted together, and many thoughts flashed through his mind. Being able to fuse 22 Dream Master World beads to open the spiritual world temple and enter the spiritual world is a gift from the Demon Lord. As far as he knows, there is no other person in the entire Jinyu continent who has such luck and ability except him. He is the only one favored by the demon god of the blood demon sect in Jinyu continent. Could it be that besides himself, there are other people in Jinyu continent who are also favored by the master demon god? Impossible. Those who are favored by the Lord Demon God will not be attacked by the nightmare insects. If it weren't for a few nightmare insects who brought back the news, the old man would not believe it. Where is the person you are talking about? The old man asked directly. The body of the nightmare insect continued to twist in the air, changing into various shapes. In that abandoned junior pastoral castle closest to here, and that person hasn't become a pastor yet. The old man who got the news flashed a faint blood in his eyes. Okay, I understand. The old man waved his hand, and the three nightmare insects twisted their bodies and flew into the sky again. Soon, each of them entangled and absorbed a star and began to squirm. The old man narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction of Muling Fort where Xiaopingyan was located. Then he flew into the grey mist and rushed towards the direction where Muling Fort was locked. Where are those nightmare insects? Xiaopingyan searched in the wilderness outside Muling Castle for a long time, but did not see the three nightmare insects that were chasing him just now. Xiaopingyan originally thought that the three nightmare insects would guard him outside Muling Castle, but he didn't expect that in just a short time, the three nightmare insects would disappear without a trace. Was it because the nightmare insect's IQ was too high that he could predict that he might master the nightmare-slaying sword and run away in advance? Or were they afraid of the Lingbao guards and were scared away? By the way, if the dream demon is also in the spirit world, will those nightmare insects attack the dream demon? Judging from the effect of the dream puppet technique mastered by the dream demon should still be a junior pastor. Since the dream demon has mastered the dream puppet skill, it is reasonable for the dream demon to master the nightmare-slaying sword. The demon cult has been famous for a long time, which means that it has been in the spiritual world for a long time. For such a long time, the dream demon has only been a junior shepherd. His abilities have not improved at all, and he has not done much in the spiritual world. This feels a bit strange. If those nightmare insects and dream demons are in the same group, then these questions turned around in Xiaopingyan's head twice. Xiaopingyan's eyes flashed with light. He made a spirit-seeking technique with both hands. Wei Miu's face flashed in his mind. The child felt the sensation and pointed in one direction. Xiaopingyan's figure suddenly turned in one direction and disappeared into the thick grey fog. About half an hour later, the old man's figure emerged from the grey mist and appeared in the wilderness thousands of meters away from Muling Castle. The old man did not rush into Muling Fort immediately, but walked very carefully around Muling Fort in the wilderness, carefully observing the situation around Muling Fort, and after confirming that there was nothing outside Muling Fort, After the ambush was abnormal, they came to the entrance of Muling Fort little by little. After observing the entrance of Muling Fort for a while, they entered Muling Fort without any sound. A moment later, the old man stood in the pastoral hall on the second floor of the pastoral castle. Looking at the 5 black stone tablets in the hall, his expression changed a little. The depression of the palm prints in the middle of the 5 black stone tablets was clean and dust-free, and it had obviously been used by someone. Who is it? The old man inexplicably felt an unprecedented sense of crisis. In the past, he had always felt that he was the only one who could enter and exit this spiritual world. He was the master of this spiritual world. He could do whatever he wanted in this world without restraint. Well, but now, there is a second person who can enter this spiritual world. No matter what the background of this second person who can enter the spiritual world is, it is a huge threat to him. At the same time, Xiaopingan finally saw another nightmare insect attached to the spirit body of the stars in the sky. There is only one. Xiaopingan didn't do anything, just stared at the nightmare insect for a few seconds. The nightmare insect suddenly felt Xiaopingan's gaze and turned its head. After just looking at Xiaopingan for 2 seconds, it suddenly, after breaking away from the adsorbed star spirit body, it rushed towards Xiaopingan like a twisting giant snake. The reaction of this nightmare insect was exactly the same as that of the nightmare insect that Xiaopingan encountered just now. It seemed as if it had seen the most delicious prey, and it jumped down ecstatically. Xiaopingan stood on the ground, holding the hilt of the sword in one hand, and holding the hand seal of the Nightmare Slayer sword with the other hand, staring coldly at the huge nightmare insect that quickly rushed towards the ground. Just when the nightmare insect flew to a height of 300 to 400 meters above the ground, the long sword in Xiaopingan's hand was finally unsheathed. Cut. The long sword in his hand glowed blue and suddenly broke away from Xiaopingan's hand. Like a bolt of lightning, it slashed towards the nightmare insect. When the long sword left Xiaopingan's hand, it was still the same size. It flew 10 meters away, and the long sword had doubled in size. It flew another 10 meters, and doubled in size again. It flew less than 50 meters away. Outside, the long sword has turned into a giant sword more than 10 meters long, with a faint blue light flashing all over its body, cutting through the void. The giant sword slashed through the nightmare insect, almost completely cutting it open from head to tail in the air. The nightmare insect's body turned into black mist and disappeared, leaving only a ball of golden light flying towards Xiaopingan and sinking directly into Xiaopingan's chest. The giant sword that cut through the sky circled around in the sky, flew back again, and returned to its original size. Xiaopingan silently observed the soul power in his body. The nightmare-slaying sword he just used temporarily consumed 1 slash of soul power. The consumed 1 slash of soul power would be restored after 1 month, but he had just fused. The soul power in that golden brilliance is enough to kill 1.5. So after killing a nightmare insect, the soul power in Xiaopingan's body rose instead of falling, and he suddenly gained 0.5 kills. This feeling is so good. The extra 0.5 cuts not only make up for all the weakness Xiaopingan felt after vomiting blood, but also go beyond it, making Xiaopingan feel that his body at the moment it feels better than ever before, my ears and eyes are clear, and my whole body feels refreshed. After killing the nightmare insect, the star spirit body that had just been absorbed by the nightmare insect shot a ray of light from the sky on Xiaopingan's body. The light flashed away, and then, the spirit body has some mysterious connection with Xiaopingan. This is the first star spirit body that Xiaopingan guards. Xiaopingan didn't do anything, and the information about the star spirit emerged in his consciousness. The star spirit's identity was an ordinary postman in Shangjing City. Half an hour later, Xiaopingan finally saw the 3 nightmare insects from before. Xiaopingan had an idea and made a fingerprint on his hand. 3 stars fell from the sky at the same time. Before the 3 nightmare insects could react, Xiaopinggan's nightmare-slaying sword had already slashed over. The nightmare insect that was chasing him most fiercely turned into ashes. The remaining two nightmare insects had just come out of the adsorption state. The second sword of Xiaopinggan's dream-killing sword came and turned another nightmare insect into ashes. The third nightmare insect already felt something was wrong and wanted to escape. But the speed was not as fast as the Nightmare Slayer sword. Just after it flew 100 meters, it was slashed into the air again. This nightmare-slaying sword is simply the nemesis of the nightmare insect. 3 balls of golden soul power flew towards Xiaopinggan, and merged into Xiaopinggan's body in the blink of an eye. The soul power in Xiaopinggan's body increased to 6.5, and the stars guarded by him turned into 4. Xiaopinggan searched in the wilderness again. I don't know how long it will take. Xiaopinggan did not see the nightmare insect again, but found another golden arch into the spiritual world in the wilderness. The golden arch was the same as his golden arch, the only difference was that occasionally a golden arch flashed on the golden arch scarlet blood light. A dream demon, definitely a dream demon. When he saw the golden arch, Xiaopinggan's heart was shocked, and then he was ecstatic. It took no effort to break through the iron shoes and find no place. He didn't expect that the dream demon who was so mysterious in the outside world would be in the spiritual world. Encountered so easily. Although the dream demon's golden arch is right in front of Xiaopinggan, Xiaopinggan cannot enter it. Only the person who created it can enter the golden arch. Xiaopinggan looked at the surrounding environment, found a place nearby to hide, and waited for the dream demon to come back. The update of Chapter 2 is completed, everyone go to bed early. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 324. Boom. The double-layered stone door of the underground secret room suddenly shattered, dust flew into the sky, and the metal door behind the stone door suddenly turned red and turned into iron juice, flowing to the ground. The light from outside shines through the shattered stone door into the dark underground chamber. In the shadows of light and darkness, countless dust particles dance in the sunlight. The expressionless mask of the Iron Masked Man appears above the passage of the chamber. Slowly took his hand back. The little black pig followed the man in the iron mask, stretching his head and looking towards the underground secret room. The expression of the little black pig seemed to be more anxious than the man in the iron mask. Xiaopinggan didn't come out of the secret room for 3 whole days. The little black pig was really afraid that Xiaopinggan's fusion world pearl would explode his head, leaving him with the body of a pig forever and never recover. That would be tragic. The Iron Masked Man originally didn't want to come down, but Xiaopinggan was too abnormal this time. He went directly into the secret room and did not come out for 3 days. The Iron Masked Man could feel Xiaopinggan's condition in the secret room, sitting cross-legged on the futon on the stone bed in the secret room. People also breathe, as if they are fusing world beads, but there is no light cocoon on their body, let alone sleeping. After waiting for 3 days, Xiaopinggan still looked like this. This morning, the man in the iron mask couldn't wait any longer, so he had no choice but to break in from the outside and prepare to enter the secret room to see Xiaopinggan's situation in person. The door of the secret room was broken open, and the man in the iron mask waved, and the flying dust was pulled out of the secret room in a strong wind, and the entire underground secret room suddenly became quiet. The man in the iron mask stepped over the debris on the ground and went down the stairs from the entrance. The little black pig followed behind the man in the iron mask, and the man in the iron mask did not stop him. But soon, the man in the iron mask came to Xiaopinggan and carefully checked Xiaopinggan's situation. Xiaopinggan's body was soft and he was breathing long and slow. It didn't look like he was poisoned, let alone sleeping, or sick, but he seemed to have no consciousness and couldn't wake up at all. Moreover, after not eating or drinking for 3 days, Xiaopinggan's face turned slightly pale. The man in the iron mask has never encountered this kind of situation. The little black pig stared at Xiaopinggan with blinking eyes, shouting in his heart, "Bastard, you must not die like this. If you want to die, turn me back into a human first. Then you will want to jump off the building, take poison, and miss yourself. It's okay to stab yourself hundreds of times, don't scare me. After checking Xiaoping's physical condition, the iron-faced man thought for a moment, moved his hand, and took out a pill that exuded a light fragrance, and gently stuffed it into Xiaoping's mouth. Xiaoping's mouth turned into a stream of liquid and naturally flowed into Xiaoping's esophagus. After taking the elixir into his mouth, Xiaoping's complexion gradually returned to a little rosy within a short time. Damn, this guy, Dream Demon, is so difficult to deal with. Like a hunter, Xiaoping had been lying in wait at the entrance of the Dream Demon's golden arch for 3 days without seeing the Dream Demon's shadow. Seeing the spiritual stars in the sky slowly disappearing again, and the entire spiritual world gradually returning to darkness, just like the outside world entering the night, Xiaoping couldn't help but curse secretly in his heart. Xiaoping had a feeling that the Dream Demon was also looking for him, and maybe he also discovered the golden arch through which he entered the spiritual world. However, at this moment, he still had a slight advantage. He knew that the other party was a Dream Demon, but the other party did not know who he was. If the Ruyi mask was still there, Xiaoping would like to change his appearance, but unfortunately, in this spiritual world, everyone appears as their original appearance, which cannot be changed. Xiaoping also tried to use a long sword to cut his clothes to make a scarf to wear on his face, but as soon as his clothes were cut, they turned into smoke and dissipated, and another piece of cloth grew out of the original clothes, unable to change its purpose at all. The laws of the spiritual world are completely different from those of the real world. Many things in this world seem to disappear as soon as they are divided and lose their original functionality. This is the only chance to lock down the Dream Demon. Once this opportunity is lost, it will be even harder to find the Dream Demon. Xiaoping made up his mind. At worst, he will fight the Dream Demon here to death, and see how many days the Dream Demon can endure. This is a test of endurance and will. The two are each other's prey and hunter. Finally, after another 2 days, on the 5th day of entering the spiritual world, the Dream Demon couldn't stand it anymore. That night, under the starlight in the sky, Xiaoping saw 2 nightmare insects suddenly flying from a distance, flying and lingering in the air near the Dream Demon's golden arch for a while, then flew into the air and entangled each other. A star spirit. Xiaoping did not move. He was still hiding in his hiding place and waiting quietly. The timing of the appearance of the 2 nightmare insects seemed a little strange. Xiaoping kept his composure and did not take action. In the spirit world, nightmare insects can be encountered at any time, but Dream Demons cannot be encountered at any time. More than 10 minutes after the 2 nightmare insects arrived, Xiaoping discovered that there was a large piece of grey mist. Quickly approaching the golden arch in the grey mist, there was a vague white figure. The white figure was very careful, wrapping its whole body in grey mist, and approaching the golden arch little by little. Just when the mist was less than 100 meters away from the golden arch, a white figure rushed out of the mist and wanted to rush into the golden arch. Xiaoping suddenly emerged from his hiding place. He jumped out and stood in front of the golden arch. He made a fingerprint on his hand and said, "Scatter." The grey fog surrounding the white figure dispersed, and the grey fog within a mile of the golden arch was billowing and cleared in an instant. Xiaoping and the figure both saw each other at once. "It's you." Both were shocked. "Master Shui Yu." "Xiaoping." The 2 men called each other's name almost simultaneously. Compared with Xiaoping's shock when he discovered that the Dream Demon was Master Shui Yu, the Dream Demon's shocked look was actually even worse when he saw Xiaoping's face. The 2 figures were dozens of meters apart, and they locked eyes with each other. "I didn't expect that the famous dream fortune teller in the capital would actually be a Dream Demon," Xiaoping sighed. Master Shuiyu's eyes flashed strangely, and he took in all the shock in his eyes. His face returned to its original state, and then he said in a hoarse voice, I didn't expect that the inspector of Donggang of the Judgment Army would also being able to fuse 22 Dream Master World Pearls and enter the spiritual world. The Great Shang Kingdom probably doesn't know you have such an ability. Haha, so, what a coincidence. I never thought that the dream demon who had attacked me so many times was actually a deceitful dream teller. The identity contrast is so great that it is indeed your best cover. Xiaopingan. As he spoke, he pulled out the rusty longsword in his hand with a bang. The dream demon's eyes shrank sharply, but he did not step back. Instead, he said coldly, "We are all junior pastors. You can do the tricks I know, and I can kill nightmares as well as you can. The sword is only useful against nightmare insects, but is useless against priests. None of us can do anything to the other, so why don't we discuss it, and we each return to our own secret mandala, and then decide whether to live or die based on our abilities." Ha ha ha. Xiaopingan laughed wildly. Everyone says that the dream demons of the blood demon sect are very cunning. As expected, our nightmare-slaying sword can only kill nightmare insects and cannot do anything to the other party. But do you think that if I kill them, do you need the nightmare-slaying sword? If this long sword cuts off your neck here, do you think you can still live? Xiaopingan said, gently flicking the long sword in his hand, and the long sword made a buzzing dragon sound. Groan. With a cold face, the dream demon also pulled out the sharp long sword in his hand, pointed at Xiaopingan, and smiled coldly. "Do you think I'm afraid of you? If I really want to take action, maybe it's you who will die here. I think it's ridiculous that the two of us, as powerful summoners, have to fight to the death in the spirit world using such vulgar methods as warriors." Haha, aren't you afraid? Xiaopingan had a smile on his face and used firm steps to approach the dream demon step by step. "If my guess is correct, the level of soul power in your body at this moment should be higher than the level after entering the spiritual world. There is no growth at all, right? The blood demon cult allows you to enter the spiritual world. You may be lucky enough to get the status of a pastoralist, enter the pastoralist castle and learn the primary skills of a pastoralist from the pastoral castle, but if you can't kill the nightmare insect, you won't be able to fulfill your true duty as a shepherd, and your strength will always remain stagnant. So you dream demon has been famous for a long time, but you are still a junior pastor and cannot move forward on the path of a pastor. God is fair. You blood demon cult cannot take advantage of everything in the spiritual world. And, you can't both control the nightmare insects and kill them to increase your strength. Do you think I'm right? This month, you have done a lot of things with the dream puppet technique in Shangjing City, and your soul power must have been consumed a lot. It should not have recovered yet, and you have been here for 5 days. If you hadn't been unable to hold on, wouldn't you have? I will be anxious to return to the secret mandala." The dream demon sneered, "I can't kill you, but the nightmare insect can kill you." Seeing Xiaopingan approaching step by step, the dream demon retreated sharply, suddenly made a strange whistling sound in his mouth, made a fingerprint on his hand, and pointed at Xiaopingan. The 2 star spirits in the sky suddenly fell down, and the 2 nightmare insects adsorbed on the star spirits also swooped towards Xiaopingan, spraying arrow-like arrows from their mouths. Black energy shot towards Xiaopingan. The brilliance of the 2 nightmare-slaying swords suddenly lit up and slashed at the 2 nightmare insects. In the flash of lightning, the bodies of the 2 nightmare insects were shattered under the nightmare-slaying sword. However, the dream demon took advantage of the moment when Xiaopingan issued the nightmare-slaying sword and roared. With the cover of the nightmare insect's body, his body was like light smoke. He rushed towards the golden arch. The nightmare-slaying sword that flew out had not yet returned to Xiaopingan's hand, but a somewhat rusty long sword appeared in Xiaopingan's hand. He quickly turned around and rushed towards the dream demon. In the past, the figures of the 2 people passed each other like lightning in the air. The cold light and the sharp edges of the swords collided in the air. Several rays of brilliance that were difficult to catch with the naked eye flashed through the air. "Ah!" The dream demon screamed, and a hand holding a long sword was broken at the shoulder. Black blood sprayed and fell to the ground. And his whole body turned into a red blood light, and he suddenly rushed into the golden arch. Xiaoping threw his long sword, and the long sword in his hand turned into a sword light, chasing the dream demon's body, and submerged into the golden arch among the golden arches. Chapter 2 will be updated tonight. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 325. Xiaoping's body rolled in the air, as powerful and dexterous as a tiger. Finally, he landed firmly on the ground, frowning slightly, looking at the bloody golden arch. It was only at this time that the light on the nightmare sword disappeared and returned to Xiaoping's hand again. The golden arch of the dream demon was slowly fading in front of his eyes, changing from a solid body to a shadow, and then slowly disappearing from the shadow. The location of the golden arch was gradually covered by a grey mist, as if it had never appeared before. Xiaoping looked at the ground. The hand of the dream demon that he chopped off was turning into black energy and dissipating little by little, but the dream demon's long sword remained. Xiaoping walked over and picked up the long sword on the ground. The long sword is as bright as silver, without any rust, and has a sharp edge. It is obviously much more advanced than the long sword Xiaoping holds in his hand and the long sword he throws. There are two small seal fonts flying on the blade of the long sword near the handle. Fiamang, what a great sword! Xiaoping admired in his heart. I don't know where the dream demon got this long sword. In order to escape through the golden arch just now, the dream demon dropped the scabbard of the sword. It was not until this moment that the two golden soul powers of the two beheaded nightmare insects flew to Xiaoping's chest and were absorbed by Xiaoping. The soul power in Xiaoping's body suddenly increased to 7.5 kills, and the upper limit of the soul power, if fully restored, is 13.5 kills. Compared with a few days ago, when Xiaoping just entered the spirit world, unknowingly, the soul power of his body, already doubled. After just killing the two nightmare insects, Xiaoping's Mu Shao's star spirit body quietly increased to 6. There are 6 stars in the sky that have a subtle connection with Xiaoping. I wonder if the dream demon has been killed? Xiaoping didn't know either. The last sword he threw just now was aimed at the back of the dream demon's head. If the long sword catches up with the dream demon, it can penetrate the dream demon's head and kill it directly. But the dream demon broke away from the spirit world at the last moment and fled to his secret mandala, so Xiaoping was not sure. But no matter what, now that the identity of the dream demon is known, and the dream demon is still in the capital, it is the best time to kill the dream demon. Xiaoping turned around and without delaying for a second, immediately ran towards his golden arch. He wanted to return to his body, and then immediately go to the real world to kill the dream demon. He must not let the dream demon escape. Xiaoping had a vague feeling that the dream demon knew that he could enter the spirit world, which might bring him unpredictable consequences. The moment the dream demon saw him just now, his shock was a little unusual. Logically speaking, since the dream demon already knew that another person would enter the spirit world, and he had played hide and seek with him in the spirit world for several days, he was also the target of his assassination at least twice using the dream puppet technique. When he saw his expression at that moment shouldn't have changed that much. Dream demon, why are you so shocked? Behind the shock, it seemed that it was not as simple as seeing a Skywalker here. This question lingered in Xiaoping's mind, and also brought a shadow to Xiaoping's heart. Xiaoping quickened his pace, his body shaped like an arrow, passing through the grey mist. At the same time, on a small island more than 70 kilometers away from the sea east of Beijing. In the basement of the small room of the keeper who guards the only lighthouse on the island. Well. With a soft groan that was filled with pain, the dream demon finally woke up from the basement of the lighthouse. In the dark room, the dream demon was panting violently. The sweat on his forehead and neck made his shirt so wet in just the blink of an eye that it looked like it had been fished out of water. A wooden puppet was in the room, guarding beside his bed, moving mechanically. The puppet's holy eyes, pointed funny nose, and cold and weird smile on its face, in this dark room, it can scare the faint of heart. The room was dark, but in the eyes of the summoner, this darkness was just like daylight at dusk. In this room, you can faintly hear the sound of waves kissing the rocks outside. The face of the dream demon guarding the lighthouse was that of a cautious and honest man, which was very different from Mr. Suijitsu. One of Dream Demon's hands could no longer move. He gasped, and with his left hand that could still move, he took out 2 pills from the space equipment and swallowed them directly. After swallowing the elixir, the trembling of his body slowed down a bit, but the severe pain in his arms and ears was heart-piercing, which made the Dream Demon's face become ferocious. The last sword Xiaopingan threw at him almost killed him. If he hadn't lowered his head at the most critical moment, he would be dead now. But even so, that sword still cut off an ear on the left side of his spirit body at the moment his spirit body entered the spirit world temple. Bada! In the unspeakable pain, a bloody streak appeared on the Dream Demon's left ear, falling directly from his head and falling to the ground, like a piece of rotten meat. If the spiritual body does not exist, how can the physical body be attached? Wow! The Dream Demon gritted his teeth and tore off the sleeve of his right hand, just below his right shoulder. His right hand, which was still intact, had slowly grown like a withered vine in the blink of an eye. It has lost its vitality and is shrinking and turning black, like a broken vine placed under the scorching sunday. It is losing its vitality little by little, as if it will fall off his arm at any time. This kind of pain is indescribable. A short sword appeared in the Dream Demon's left hand. Looking at his withering right hand, the Dream Demon gritted his teeth. As soon as he closed his eyes, he cut off his right hand from the shoulder with a single knife. The Dream Demon took a handful of elixirs, summoned an elixir master, bandaged his wounds, and then put away the puppet. Then he stumbled up from the basement under the lighthouse, walked out of the hut, and headed towards the beach. Run! This is a deserted island. Only when there is a storm, a few fishermen will come to this island to escape the storm. On the entire island, apart from bird droppings and rocks, there are only a few low wattle trees on the edge of the beach. There are also a few mangroves. The night outside is dark, and the sky is full of stars, which is somewhat similar to the way the spirit world looks at the moment. The sound of wind and waves raged on the island. Xiaopingan. The Dream Demon walked quickly through the messy rocks while roaring in a low voice, laughing like a devil from the depths of his throat. It turns out, that person it's you. Although his identity was exposed and he was seriously injured, the Dream Demon did not look decadent at this moment, because he knew that he had made great contributions to the Blood Demon sect. This great achievement, even if all their 5 demons are wiped out, it will be worth it as long as they bring this news back. It was precisely in order to determine which person it was that the Blood Demon cult issued a killing order to Xiaopingan and his group of Skywalkers who came to this world, and no one was spared. The death order was issued by the Palace Master, and according to the Palace Master's wishes, the person who actually issued the death order was the highest level of the Blood Demon religion. It was a powerful existence that the Dream Demon could not touch, and it was already close to the gods. The Dream Demon didn't know why the highest level of the Blood Demon sect wanted to find the most special person among these Skywalkers, but he knew that the most special person must be Xiaopingan. Because Xiaopingan can enter the spiritual world. As long as he brings this news back, that's enough. The Dream Demon stumbled to the beach, and then plunged into the dark and turbulent sea. 2 waves came in, and there was no trace again. At the same time, I went to Tianyuan Qiao night market in Beijing, inside Wu building. A plump, fair, and jeweled woman had been waiting in line for a long time. She had just climbed upstairs and sat opposite Master Shuiyu, a kind-faced and immortal Taoist, and asked Master Shuiyu to interpret his dreams using dream interpretation. Under Master Shuiyu's dream interpretation, the woman's dream gradually emerged. Master, this dream is really strange. I have had dreams about losing my shoes for the past 2 days. What do you think this dream means? The woman asked twice, and found that Master Shuiyu suddenly lost his voice. She raised her head and looked towards Master Shuiyu, and saw that Master Shuiyu's body suddenly froze, and the one who still had the dreaming skill in his hand, however, Master Shuiyu's eyes, nose, and ears fell off Master Shuiyu's face bit by bit like melted wax, fell to the ground, and turned into pus and blood. At this moment, Master Shuiyu's face was particularly terrifying. Ah! At this moment, the woman's scream pierced the peace in Wu building and could be heard almost 100 meters away on the street. As the woman screamed, Master Shuiyu's entire body turned into fishy pus and blood bit by bit, flowing all over the floor. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 326. In the dark night, a bolt of lightning emerged from the clouds and fell directly on the small square outside Wu building without any warning, startling the people around him. As soon as the lightning disappeared, the man in the iron mask appeared here holding Xiaoping's hand. The police have set up a cordon outside the Wu building. It was so exciting just now that the iron-faced man brought Xiaoping to use the thunder escape technique. For Xiaoping, it was like riding a super roller coaster. In the roar of lightning, the whole person was going up and down. Dizzy for a few seconds, and then rushed over. The man in the iron mask is really awesome. Who is it? Looking at the lightning that suddenly appeared here and the two people who appeared after the lightning, several policemen suddenly gathered around. Xiaoping took out his inspection badge and flashed it at the policeman. The policemen's attitudes changed and they immediately retreated. Xiaoping didn't say anything more, and went directly through the blockade with the man in iron mask and went to Wu building. A pair of patrolling Judgment Army teams have surrounded this place. Xiaoping revealed his identity. The captain of the Judgment Army team looked at the token that Xiaoping had arrived and asked, "This is not Donggang district. Your Excellency was investigating before Master Shuiyu's case." "No, this man owed me a lot of money before. I heard something happened, so I came over to check and confirm if he ran away. Please help me, brother," Xiaoping said. Oh, after hearing what Xiaoping said, the Judgment Army team did not stop them and just made it a convenience to let Xiaoping and the iron-faced man go upstairs. The smell inside Wu building is a bit pungent, with an unspeakable fishy stench. There is a pool of pus and blood outside Wu building, and a pool of pus and blood inside Wu building. The two of them came directly to the pool of pus and blood in Wu building. Xiaoping frowned slightly and looked at the pool of pus and blood. The God of Fortune boy had just arrived here before the two of them, so Xiaoping already knew everything about what happened here. Just now, Master Shuiyu and the boy next to him in the Wu building were in full view of everyone. Without saying a word, it suddenly turned into pus and blood, frightening the people who came here to interpret the dream. They quickly called the police, and the Judgment Army team who received the news also rushed over. After investigation, the Judgment Army team found that there was no trace of the summoner's action here, and the two pools of pus and blood were suspected of poisoning. The iron-faced man squatted in front of a pool of pus and blood, looked at it carefully, stood up, and said to Xiaoping, "This is a kind of poison called, and the soul, bones, and blood of a person who is poisoned will dissolve little by little, won't leave anything behind." Xiaoping nodded and searched in Wu building, but found no other clues. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart and let the dream demon run away. Master Shuiyu and his followers, who turned into pus and blood, are definitely one of the puppets controlled by the dream demon. The dream demon allowed Master Shuiyu to use his identity to deceive people in Shangjing City. The dream demon controlled the situation, and while the dream demon was in the Shangjing City, he should have other identities and hiding spots that would not be exposed easily. The cunning of this dream demon is beyond imagination. Once it was discovered that his whereabouts were exposed, the dream demon immediately cut off its tail to survive, causing Master Xuanhuan to self-destruct. Not even the blessed boy could find any trace of the dream demon. This also indirectly proved that the sword he threw did not kill the dream demon. The trace of the dream demon that had just been caught was cut off. But this time it is not all without gain, at least the dream demon can no longer hide so easily. The dream demon broke one of his right hands in the spiritual world, so no matter what methods the dream demon uses in the future, his right hand should be disabled. What kind of elixir is there? It's impossible to save him with any magic medicine, so it will be easier to target the dream demon. Xiaopingan and the iron-faced man then exited Wuya building and walked on the street outside. That Master Xuanhuan really owes you a lot of money, the iron-masked man asked. In fact, until now, the iron-masked man didn't know why Xiaopingan hurried here as soon as he woke up from the secret room. False, Xiaopingan said without thinking, the real Master Xuanhuan is the dream demon, and the dead one is a puppet. The man in the iron mask gasped slightly, Incubus. Yes. You've been in the underground secret room these past few days, and I was worried that you wouldn't wake up. How did you know? The man in the iron mask asked incredulously. So, why do you think I haven't woken up these days? I had a fight with the dream demon in my dream and cut off one of the demon's hands. In the future, if you see someone without a right hand, pay more attention to that person. Maybe it's a dream demon. You just need to know this news, keep it secret for now. Xiaopingan shrugged and smiled, touching his belly. Let's go, find a place and I'll treat you to something to eat. I haven't eaten in a few days. I'm so hungry. The iron-faced man took a deep look at Xiaopingan and felt that Xiaopingan was too enigmatic. The two found a restaurant nearby. Xiaopingan ordered a table of dishes and devoured them. Xiaopingan seemed to be normal, but the iron-masked man still found that Xiaopingan's expression was slightly different from usual. While eating, Xiaopingan was a little calmer than normal, not as casual as usual, and his eyes occasionally became deep, just like thinking about something. The matter of the dream demon is indeed not over yet, and there is still a tale left. Xiaopingan has to carefully consider what consequences the blood demon sect will have after knowing that he can enter the spirit world. This time, although he has temporarily lifted the dream demon's influence on him, threat, but to a certain extent, he was also completely exposed to the blood demon cult. Xiaopingan had to face it carefully. The death of Master Xuanhuan, on this night, caused almost no big movement except for causing some waves in the circle of dream fortune tellers in the upper capital. After the investigation by the Judgment Army, they came to the conclusion that he committed suicide by taking poison. Not many people care anymore. The resources of the Judgment Army are also limited, and the death of a scheming dream teller is really nothing in the Shangjing city in front of us. After eating with the iron-faced man, he returned to the small rented courtyard again. Xiaopingan calculated the time and found that the killer the Huang family was looking for to kill him would probably arrive in the capital in the next 2 days. 2 days later, I went to the Donggang district pier in Beijing. Wuo. Amidst the loud whistle, a 10,000-ton Tianqing passenger ship slowly docked at a berth at the pier. When the passenger ship stopped, the passengers on the passenger ship poured out of the passenger ship like a flood, saluting with large and small bags. Scenes like this can be seen every day in the dock area. The prosperous Shangjing city attracts countless people to the city every day. A man in his 30s, unattractive, thin, wearing a pair of round-rimmed glasses, with a gentle appearance, who was struggling to carry a semi-old leather suitcase and wearing a gray short coat, was also crowded among the crowd. Carrying suitcases and rushing out. Anyone who sees that man will not pay too much attention to that man. At first glance, that man gives the impression that he is an ordinary person who comes to the capital to escape from life. He may be an ordinary accountant or a small businessman. Clerks and the like. There are many such people in Shangjing City. They come to Shangjing City with all kinds of dreams and want to get rich and get ahead. But it won't take long for the city to let them understand what the hardship of life is. Those groups of people living together, basements, dark, leaky, and noisy old and small buildings, as well as those arduous low-income lives, staying up late, working overtime, and the long hours of torment on the way to and from get off work every day, will drain them dry within a few years. The last trace of enthusiasm made them leave the city sadly. And then new people will keep coming. The man finally walked out of the port with his suitcase in hand. Looking at the city in front of him, a cold light flashed in the man's eyes, and a strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth unconsciously. It has been a long time since he took a job from Shangjing City. This time, the reward was high, and the target was just for a small inspector. This task is not difficult. However, a small inspector of the Judgment Army has to take action himself, so the patron is really wealthy. Looking at the crowd surging around him, the cold light in the man's eyes and the smile on his mouth disappeared in the blink of an eye. He disappeared into the crowd again, mixed in with the crowd, and walked out of the port gate. The moment the man walked out of the port, two people walked over naturally from the gate and naturally held the man's arms. The man was stunned and looked at the man holding his left arm. That man was wearing an iron mask and couldn't see his face clearly, but his breath was cold and powerful. The man holding his right arm was in his 40s, with a thin face, prominent cheekbones, rough and dark skin on his face, a hooked nose that looked particularly sinister, and the aura on his body was equally terrifying. He was staring at him with a cruel look that took pleasure in his misfortune. "Ah, who are you? I don't know you. I have no money. I take the bus, not the carriage." The man being driven by the arm pretended to be panicked. The iron-faced man holding his left arm just moved his fingers, and a blue arc of electricity penetrated from his hand into his body, causing his whole body to be completely paralyzed. And the cruel look with gloating eyes, the guy who looked at him even more neatly used the magic needle to seal his secret mandala. There wasn't even a chance to resist. He, we pretend to look alike, it doesn't matter, you will know who we are soon." The flame rhinoceros smiled. A black carriage came from the side and stopped on the side of the road. The door of the carriage was opened. Xiaopingan was sitting in the carriage with a smile on his face, holding a glass of red wine in his hand, and looked at him with sympathetic eyes. Looking at the man who was held up by the iron-masked man and Yan 11 under his arms. When the man saw Xiaopingan, his expression finally changed. He had seen this face in the mission portrait, but it was impossible to run away. An update today. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 327. The street was crowded with people, and there was almost no disturbance. In the blink of an eye, the man was escorted to the car by the iron-masked man and Yan 11, and was thrown at Xiaopingan's feet without dignity like a dead dog. The door was closed, and the black carriage started running again. The man lying on the ground looked at the other three people in the car with horrified eyes. To this day, he still doesn't understand why he fell into trouble as soon as he arrived in Shangjing City. It's like he fell into a trap. Then, he heard the hook-nosed guy say flatteringly to his target, "Why don't you turn him into a pig too? I'll train him, and I'll make sure that in a few days he'll be as obedient as his 18th century ancestor." The situation of the generation has been clearly explained. The man lying on the ground felt a chill. "By the way, why is it?" Xiaopingan smiled and looked down at the man lying at his feet. "Do you know who I am?" "I know," the man said in a low voice. "I also know who you are, and I know who came to you, and I also know how many gold coins the Huang family gave you. You are also a summoner in the Liu Yang realm. You have never missed it before. I think the Huang family gave you a few gold coins are not enough to buy your life. What do you think?" "Where did you get this information?" The man stopped pretending at this time, and his face became cold, revealing the true nature of a killer. Even if he lost so miserably this time, he still wanted to know how he lost. Besides the Huang family, who do you think can know this information? Xiaoping'an said half-truthfully. Damn! The man cursed. There really was something wrong with the Huang family. No wonder he was arrested as soon as he got off the boat. Now you have two choices. One is to cooperate with me, tell everything you know clearly, and serve as a witness to correct the Huang family. This choice will not allow you to escape punishment, but it will allow you to survive and save your life. The second option, you can choose not to cooperate and maintain your professional ethics. The result will be death. The carriage will arrive at the Donggang inspection office soon. Before the carriage stops, tell me your choice, or the Huang family will die. Either you die, you choose one. Xiaoping'an was not angry from beginning to end, but spoke calmly to the people at his feet. Because of this, the killer was extremely frightened, and his back was suddenly soaked with cold sweat, because he knew that Xiaoping'an was not joking with him. You promise you won't lie to me? Can I survive if I cooperate with you? The killer's voice became hoarse because of the tension. Because I want your confession, and I want to hand you over to the Judgment Army to identify the Huang family. You are useful to me alive. Prisoners like you are very scarce in the capital now, and they are needed in many places. In correcting the Huang family after that, the Judgment Army will not take your life. You will probably only have to live a hard life for several decades. Of course, how long the hard life will last depends on your own ability, but at least there is a hope of living. If you want to die, I will help you now. I will drag a corpse from the carriage later, and I will find another way to deal with the Huang family. The killer didn't think about it for long before he said, I choose to cooperate. Xiaoping'an laughed, clever. Seeing that Xiaoping'an did not turn the killer into a pig, Yan 11 was slightly disappointed, but he still used the secret method of sound transmission to volunteer and said to Xiaoping'an, if you want the lives of those in the Huang family, I can kill Huang. Everyone in the family was killed. Haha, since I have the adjudication army as my backer, and I have evidence that can bring down the Huang family, why would I take the risk to do such a thing on my own? Do you think that going to the capital can really allow a Sixth Sun Realm summoner to do whatever he wants? Any action is risky. If something happens to the Huang family now, the first person others will suspect is me. Why should I ask for trouble? Therefore, unless I have no choice, this move is the best move for me. It's a bad choice, I just need to deal with it impartially. Xiaoping'an glanced at Yan 11 and shook his head. Isn't it stupid to take risks on your own if there is a state machine that won't take advantage of it? If the Huang family had no other options, they would never take the path of finding a killer. Hey, can you give me a few more hours today? Yan 11 asked with a flattering look. Xiaoping'an curled his lips, stretched out his hand to touch Yan 11's body, and a little light flew into Yan 11's body. Seeing that you performed well today, let's wait till sunset. Yan 11 took a long breath, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. Okay, thank you, thank you. Xiaoping'an means that after sunset, he will still turn back into a pig. But for Yan 11, who can do it for most of the day, he is already very satisfied. At least it is a good start. Even though he is now human and his strength has been restored, Yan 11 dare not run away because the sealing technique in his body is still there. Xiaoping'an can turn him into a pig at any time. His current state can be described in one sentence, that is to say, becoming a pig is unconditional, but becoming a human is conditional. Xiaoping'an needs to give him unlocking time. Once this unlocking time is up, he will become a pig again. If you are not a pig, you don't know the value of human life. It didn't take long for the carriage to stop at the door of the Donggang Inspectorate. Xiaoping'an got out of the car. Yan 11 held the killer in one hand and lifted the killer out of the car. Several people entered the inspectorate. The killer was immediately placed in the interrogation room. This is the situation. The Huang family hired me to come to Shangjing City for two purposes. One is Xiaoping'an, and the other is the remaining members of the Fire Dragon gang. The Huang family wants to eradicate them all. In the interrogation room, the killer sat on a special chair, and Long Chao and Hua Zikan were in charge of the interrogation. The killer was very cooperative. When the two asked questions, he explained everything in detail. "Why do the Huang family want you to eradicate the Fire Dragon gang?" Long Chao asked in a deep voice. "This issue has nothing to do with me. I'm just a killer who takes money from others to eliminate disasters for others. I only need to confirm the identity and price of the target. I don't care about the rest. What are the specific arrangements?" According to the plan, the Huang family will first pretend to arrange for people from the Fire Dragon gang to cooperate with me to assassinate Xiaoping'an. After success, I will eradicate the people from the Fire Dragon gang, and then shift the responsibility for the assassination to those people from the Fire Dragon gang. All the problems will be solved. There were also several people in the room next to the interrogation of the killer. Xiaoping'an stood in front of a huge single-view glass, watching the interrogation in the interrogation room next to him. The sound from the interrogation room was transmitted to this room through the copper pipe, and everything was clear and clear. In this room, there were 3 shackled summoners. One of them had lost a leg and was wearing a prosthetic leg. These 3 summoners were the remnants of the Fire Dragon gang who sniped at Xiaoping'an on the long street that day. They were all the backbone of the Fire Dragon gang. In the battle that day, all the leaders of the Fire Dragon gang were killed by Xiaoping'an. The 3 of them barely escaped with their lives at the critical moment and are hiding in the east of the capital these days. Yesterday, Xiaoping'an and the Iron Masked Man easily caught these 3 fish that slipped through the net. These 3 people are now wanted by the Judiciary Army and are already wanted criminals because they formed a formation in the upper capital to summon soldiers and sniper inspectors. These 3 people have always had a tough attitude. From the moment they were brought into this room by Xiaoping'an, they all glared at Xiaoping'an with sneers on their faces. But with the interrogation in the interrogation room next door, the sneers on the faces of the 3 backbone members of the Fire Dragon gang disappeared, and their expressions changed horribly. At first, the 3 of them thought that Xiaoping'an was acting for them. However, when the killer revealed all the details of the plan arranged by the Huang family, their psychological defenses finally collapsed, because that plan only involved them. The Huang family knows that the Huang family has discussed with them that the Huang family will find experts to deal with Xiaoping'an with them, and they will cooperate. Even if Xiaoping'an wanted to act, it would be impossible for him to know these details. They finally knew that under the Huang family's arrangement, they too would die and take the blame for Xiaoping'an's assassination. "Huang family, I am your ancestor." The bearded summoner wearing prosthetics roared angrily and tried to stand up, but was fixed on the seat and could only turn red. Breathing heavily, another summoner looked pale, and another one was smiling miserably. They are working for the Huang family, but the Huang family wants their lives. This is really a great irony. They were sold and paid back. Xiaoping'an turned his head, looked at the 3 people, and said calmly, "I have no grudges with you. That day in the bloody battle on the street, I was enforcing the law, and you were working for the Huang family. Ask yourselves, I will kill you, are you unjust? Regardless of whether you confess or not, today I will hand you over to the Judgment Army together with that killer. Whatever you want to ask, just ask. It was the Huang family who ordered us to snipe you on Long Street that day. In addition to what happened that day, the Huang family has also done a lot of dirty and shameful things in Shangjing over the years. We all know that we can shake it out this time." The bearded summoner wearing prosthetics gasped, looking like he was risking his life. Xiaoping'an signaled Fan Gang and Situ Hua, who had been silent beside him, to start interrogating them not only about the Fire Dragon gang's interception of him, but also to dig out all the dirty things in the Huang family's past. Interrogations in the two interrogation rooms were ongoing at the same time. Xiaopinggan was listening in the interrogation room where the Fire Dragon gang was being interrogated. With the explanations given by the three men from the Fire Dragon gang, the old stories of the Huang family were dug up one by one, which was simply shocking. This was by no means the first time that Huang Wei had committed a crime. However, the Huang family had settled the previous incidents of Huang Wei's insults to women. If the situation was not settled, the Fire Dragon gang took action and had already affected several lives. Huang Wei did this kind of thing too much. Gradually, the ordinary women he got with money could no longer satisfy his appetite. Later, in order to pursue excitement, he began to turn his attention to ordinary women in the city. He committed crimes in Donggang district and became more and more perverted. It wasn't until the summoner who followed Huang Wei got into trouble and was caught by the Donggang inspection office that Huang Wei became honest for a few days. There are countless other cases of corruption and perversion of the law by the Huang family. The Fire Dragon gang has done a lot of things for the Huang family. The most shocking thing among them is that the Fire Dragon gang also robbed and killed the inspectors from 6 provinces who came to the capital to complain for the Huang family. Because of that, the inspector had some illegal evidence of Huang Zheng in Anxi province. He couldn't stand what Huang Zheng did in Anxi province, so on his way back to the capital, he was robbed and killed by the Fire Dragon gang. Even Fan Gang and Situ Hua, who were in charge of interrogation records, changed their expression slightly after hearing what happened. The Huang family dared to rob and kill the inspectors of 6 provinces of the Great Shang Kingdom. However, once the village's crime was proven, the Huang family would be beyond redemption. Xiaopinggan finally knew why the Huang family wanted to silence the Fire Dragon gang. These people from the Fire Dragon gang knew too much. Maybe the Huang family had wanted to wipe out the Fire Dragon gang for a long time, but they created such an opportunity for the Huang family after severely damaging the Fire Dragon gang. After the interrogation, the 3 Fire Dragon gang members read their confessions and signed and stamped their names. Escorted to Pingshan camp. By the way, I also remembered one thing. Just as he was about to walk out of the door of the interrogation room, one of the people from the Fire Dragon gang suddenly stopped and turned around. Several men from the Huang family liked to go to Hongyi Villa. Every day my whereabouts were quite low-key and mysterious. Once I escorted Huang Zhen to Hualong Villa. Huang Zhen's carriage carried a box. The box was not big. There was a noise in the box halfway. It seemed that a child was calling for help. Huang Zhen said there was a doll inside. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 328. Red Leaf Villa. These 4 words reached Xiaopinggan's ears, and Xiaopinggan's heart suddenly moved. Hongyi Villa again? It seems that the man named Gui Nu mentioned before was also Red Leaf Villa. What are the people of the Huang family doing at Hongyi Villa? Okay, I understand, let's take him down. Xiaopinggan frowned, waved his hand gently, and asked someone to take the 3 people from the Fire Dragon gang down. Xiaopinggan walked out of the interrogation room, thought for a while, turned in another direction, went directly to the dungeon, and stood at the door of the cell of the man named Gui slave again. Xiaopinggan waved his hand, and the guard in the cell who led the way left quickly, not daring to stay and listen. The ghost slave, with his hair as messy as weeds and his whole body like a silent stone covered with moss, was sitting on the wall under the ventilation hole of the room. When he saw Xiaopinggan standing at the door of the cell, the man suddenly opened his eyes. He opened his eyes and looked at Xiaopinggan. There seemed to be thunder flashing in his eyes. How about it? Do you know that Red Leaf Villa is not an ordinary place? The man asked in a deep voice. Xiaopinggan was a little surprised and stared at the man. You can actually hear the interrogation in the interrogation room. Haha, 8th grade warriors are not as unbearable as you think. You can't lock some of the warriors' abilities. The man stood up, the chains all over his body rattling as he walked step by step to the iron door of the cell. In front of the railing, he grabbed the two iron railings with his rough hands and pressed the terrifying face with ravines over it. He lowered his voice and gritted his teeth and roared in a low voice, "You want to come and ask me about Hongyi Villa, is there anything in there? I told you, that's the Devil's Cave in Shangjing City. If you let me out, I won't run away. I'll die wherever I want. I'll tear it up and show you what's inside." Xiaopinggan rubbed his forehead, "Can't you be more straightforward? Whatever the Devil's Cave is like, that's what it looks like." Until Xiaopinggan left the dungeon, the word Devil's Cave still echoed in Xiaopinggan's mind, making his brain hurt. 2 hours later, the ruling army arrived at Pingshan camp. Bang! Lin Yi was furious, waved his hand, and slapped the table in front of him. The expensive golden starlight Nanmu desk shattered into pieces. What a big dog egg, a small one. The Fire Dragon gang actually dared to rob and kill the patrol envoy from the 6 provinces. The patrol envoy from the 6 provinces disappeared on the way back to the capital. His Majesty also asked the Judgment Army to file a case and search for it, but there was no trace. In recent years, the family of the patrol envoy from the 6 provinces have also disappeared. I come to our Judgment Army every year to inquire about news, but I didn't expect that it was actually the Fire Dragon gang. Is this confession reliable? Everyone has been sent here. Your Excellency will know at the first trial. I never thought that I could ask so many things from the Fire Dragon gang. This Huang family is so bold. No wonder they dared to hire a murderer to kill me this time. It turns out that such a thing has already happened. This is not the first time, Xiaopingyan said aggrievedly. Please sir, and the Judgment Army make the decision for me. Don't worry, as long as it can be proven that this matter is the work of the Huang family, not to mention that the Huang family is just one governor of Anxi province, even if there are 10 governors, your Majesty can chop off his head, Lin Yi said murderously. I feel relieved if you say this. Xiaopingyan also shook his head and sighed. According to the people from the Fire Dragon gang, the inspection envoy died miserably at that time. Yi Zhaofeng poured iron juice into his mouth. The body was tied with iron chains and finally sank in Jianxin Pond in Mofeng Mountain. After several years, the bones should still be at the bottom of the pond. As long as people are sent to salvage, the bones should still be fished out. According to the instructions of the Fire Dragon gang, the reason why Yi Zhaofeng was like this was because of the order given by Huang Zheng at that time. I will personally supervise the handling of this case and give an explanation to your Majesty. The Huang family is finished. Xiaopingyan let out a long breath. My lord, if you take action, this matter will definitely come to light and give the victim an explanation. If nothing happens, then I will resign first. Wait a minute, Ji Yi frowned slightly and called out to Xiaopingyan, how did you know the information about the killer coming to the capital? How come you caught that person as soon as he got off the boat? Sir, that person told me this news. That person? Well, Xiaopingyan nodded, and said without blushing or out of breath, I guess that person saw that I was still useful and didn't want me to be harmed by the Huang family, so he conveyed the information to me in time so that I could calm down. Make arrangements to capture the killer and the Fire Dragon gang in one fell swoop. Xiaopingyan brought out that person, and Ji Yi had nothing to say, but frowned slightly. Can that person bring news about the dream demon? Xiaopingyan lowered his gaze slightly and said in a calm voice, not yet. The dream demon is unpredictable and the most dangerous among the 5 demons. If that person sends news about the dream demon, you can inform me directly, Lin Yi said directly. Okay, Xiaopingyan nodded. If that person has news about the dream demon, the asking price this time will probably be very high. Your Majesty is very angry that the dream demon used a puppet to detonate the ammunition depot in the capital, causing so many casualties. As long as that person can provide information about the dream demon, any conditions are easy to negotiate. Yes, I remember. You can leave now. You are also the target of the dream demon, so be careful. Okay, thank you for your concern, sir. Xiaopinggan left Lin Yi's office. Lin Yi looked at Xiaopinggan's leaving figure, his brows wrinkled slightly, and a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. I don't know why, the last time I saw Xiaopinggan, Ji Yi could still see through Xiaopinggan's cultivation level. But after just a few days, when I saw Xiaopinggan this time, Lin Yi felt that Xiaopinggan was in his perception. It became blurry, and something inside Xiaopinggan's body seemed to have become thicker, no longer so easy for him to see through at a glance. This is a sign and reaction that the spirit and soul become stronger in a short period of time. Once the invisible inner body changes, the body and outer body will also undergo subtle changes. In the shallow water of the creek, you can see the bottom and the gravel in the creek at a glance. As the water gets deeper and deeper, it becomes more difficult to see the bottom. Xiaopinggan's situation is like this. Xiaopinggan walked out of the Pingshan camp. The carriage was waiting for him outside. He got on the carriage and asked the driver to go back to Changle Lane. Has the Huang family's matter been resolved? The man in the iron mask asked. Solved, Xiaopinggan nodded and breathed out easily. Seeing his enemies in Shangjing City being eliminated one by one, Xiaopinggan felt that his footsteps were much easier. It can be said that once the Huang family was eliminated, those who still dared to show their teeth to him in Shangjing City were already gone. There is none left. The Sun family, the Huang family, the Fire Dragon Gang, the garrison, the chief of the Jiniang District Police Station, and the Jiniang Inspector Yao Yushang. These people have great power in the capital city, but in this short period of time, either surrendered at the feet of Xiaopinggan, or were all trampled by Xiaopinggan. Thinking about this, even the Iron Masked Man felt that Xiaopinggan was a bit too powerful. It was a misfortune to become Xiaopinggan's opponent. I'm somewhat looking forward to it. What will a person like you do if he survives in the capital city for a few more years? The man with the iron mask looked at Xiaopinggan, rubbed his chin, and told a joke he thought was funny. The commander of the Judgment Army? Or, we can't still marry a princess, become the emperor's son-in-law, and become a relative of the emperor. Xiaopinggan also smiled and said nothing more, but in his heart, Xiaopinggan felt inexplicably tense and his eyes became deep. The iron masked man's words just now reminded him of a question: how long can he stay in the capital? Ever since the dream demon escaped, Xiaopinggan's heart has been hanging and it has been difficult to settle down. If you feel uneasy, it is because your subconscious mind, superconscious mind, or telepathy, no matter what you say, it is because you feel danger and discomfort inside, so you have been unable to settle down. Xiaopinggan knew that he would definitely become the target of the blood demon cult, but it was somewhat unpredictable how strong and determined the blood demon cult would be in trying to eliminate him. He can continue to go to the capital, lure people from the blood demon sect to take the bait, and then use the power of the Judgment Army and the Great Shang Kingdom to consume the power of the blood demon section at the same time. He can also continue to collect boundary beads for cultivation in the process. Another option is to leave Shangjing City immediately, go to a new place, and start a new place, so that the blood demon sect will not be able to find your whereabouts, and your safety can be guaranteed to the greatest extent. These two options have their own advantages and disadvantages. To be honest, they have just opened up the situation in Shangjing City, and everything is going smoothly and the future is unlimited. Xiaopinggan is really reluctant to leave like this just after he created the situation, but if you stay, the dangers you will face are completely unknown. Thinking of Hongyi Villa, Xiaopinggan's heart moved. Today's work in the capital has come to an end. Tonight, he can ask the God of Fortune to go to Hongyi Villa to see what is there. At the same time, on the sea, a fishing boat floated alone in the sea. The deck was empty and not a single person could be seen. In such a sea and such a fishing boat, sometimes even if it floats for 3 to 5 months, it may not meet a single person. Inside the cabin of the fishing boat, there is a strong smell of blood at this moment, and streams of blood are flowing from the cabin. The boss of the fishing boat and several boatmen were all lying on the ground at this moment. The dream demon, whose face was covered in blood and still wearing crew clothes, was panting, waving the bloody machete in his hand, and was brutally dismembering several people on the boat. The wooden floor of the cabin became a pile of firewood, and with the silent banging sounds, bloody knife marks were left deep on the floor. Finally, the dismemberment is complete. The dream demon placed several people's heads in the middle, and then used several people's bodies and limbs to lay out, forming a bloody sacrifice pattern with devil's eyes. Wiping the blood on his face, the dream demon knelt in front of the devil's eye, took out a mysterious statue from the space equipment, placed it on a table, and began to kneel down to pray and offer sacrifices according to the ceremony, while muttering words. The Supreme Demon, the Eternal Master, your humble servants are sacrificing to you with the fear and flesh of all living beings. I pray for connection with you. I found that there is a space traveler who can enter the spiritual world. A moment later, an indescribably terrifying force burst through the air and appeared on the small sculpture. The waves of the sea outside seemed to be still at this moment, just like insects that dare not breathe in front of a beast. The bumpy fishing boat was suddenly pulled up from the sea and floated in the air. The entire fishing boat exuded a terrifying blood light. The dream demon was completely shocked. He had never encountered such a situation before. He was kneeling on the ground when he was suddenly pulled up from the ground by an indescribable force and floated in the air. He knelt and did not dare to look up. But in the dream demon's heart and in his entire consciousness, there was a voice that could make the whole world tremble. You said, you found a space traveler who can directly enter the spirit world. Could this be the voice of the dominant demon? Even the master of the palace cannot talk to the dominant demon god. This is the highest honor. The shock, joy, and uncontrollable fear and awe made the dream demon's mind and consciousness completely blank at this moment. That voice didn't need the dream demon to answer, but directly and tyrannically pulled out the dream demon's entire memory. Finally, I found you, do you want to start this game, then come. The voice of the dominant demon god roared in the dream demon's consciousness. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 329. To the north of Shangjing City is Pingshan, and further north from Pingshan is the countryside of Shangjing City. This area is less mountainous and more mountainous, with crisscrossing mountains everywhere. They are the places where various villas and private estates of the dignitaries in Shangjing City are located. The Royal Hunting Garden is also to the north. More than 20 miles away from Pingshan, there is Fengtai Mountain. Fengtai Mountain has beautiful scenery, with springs and waterfalls everywhere, and gurgling streams. It is coolest in summer, so there are many summer resorts and villas in the mountain. There is also a military camp of the garrison at the foot of Fengtai Mountain, where a division of soldiers is stationed. At night, Fengtai Mountain is lit with lights. The lights on the mountain complement the lights in the barracks, giving it a unique atmosphere. Tonight, the moon is bright and the stars are sparse. Fengtai Mountain is as quiet as ever. Under the starry sky, a naughty figure that ordinary people could not see was rushing towards Fengtai Mountain from Shangjing City. That figure didn't fly or walk, it just flashed and was already several miles away, so fast that it was hard to catch. In the blink of an eye, the figure flashed to the foot of Fengtai Mountain and broke directly into the military camp of the garrison. He slipped around the barracks, warehouses, training grounds, and weapon depots of the military camp. After sneaking around, he seemed to find this figure. There was no fun in the military camp, and he seemed to remember the purpose of coming here. The figure left the military camp. In a flash, he passed a group of soldiers who were setting up checkpoints on the road outside the military camp. With another flash, that figure appearing on the attic spire of a villa halfway up the mountain, it flashed for the third time and arrived at the top of Fengtai Mountain, standing in front of a huge villa covering a vast area. There was a plaque with gold characters on a black background hanging at the door of the villa, which read Hongyi Villa in 4 big characters. Hongyi Villa is surrounded by patches of maple forest, so this villa is named Hongyi Villa. It was midsummer at the moment, and the maple leaves in the mountains were not yet red, so there was nothing special about it yet. The gate of the villa under the plaque is like a city tower. When the god of fortune boy arrived, the gate of Hongyi Villa was closed tightly. 2 strings of red lanterns were hung at the door. Under the lanterns, there were 2 men wearing dark red guard uniforms with stern faces and strong bodies. The man pressed the knife on his waist and stared at the mountain road leading to the villa with cold eyes. From the outside, there seems to be nothing special about Hongyi Villa except for its grandeur and larger area. But in terms of grandeur, the owners who can build a manor and courtyard here are not short of money. The villas, courtyards, and private gardens on the mountain all have their own unique tastes. The naughty god of fortune boy jumped on the shoulders of the 2 guards, moving from one person's head to that person's head without any notice. At this moment, a low-key black carriage drove up from the winding mountain road. It was pulled by 4 black horses. The people in the carriage looked like they were either rich or noble. The carriage arrived at the entrance of Hongyi Villa. No one in the carriage opened the door, but opened the window slightly, revealing a fat white hand, and handed out a maple leaf-shaped sign on the hand to a guard guarding the door. He stepped forward to check, looked at the people sitting in the car, and then turned around and waved. The dark door of Maple Leaf Villa slowly opened silently, revealing the passage for the carriage to enter. The carriage then entered the villa, and the door was closed again, tightly, blocking all the scenery in the villa. The god of fortune boy rode on the horse and followed the carriage into the villa with a smile. Behind the gate of the villa is a bamboo forest. The bamboo forest is like a barrier, high and dense. The road for the carriage goes through the bamboo forest and leads directly to the interior of the villa. There is a gurgling creek on both sides of the road. The water is steaming, and the clear water is flowing. The antique stone lanterns on the roadside have been lit, emitting a bright yellow light. The light is entangled with the mist in the stream. It is bright and dark, and the flowers are fragrant everywhere. Like a fairyland. The lucky boy is not restless. As soon as they entered Hongyi Villa, the carriage had not walked a few dozen meters before the boy, the god of fortune, disappeared from the horse he was riding. The next second, he came near a group of patrolling guards in the villa and jumped on the shoulders of those guards. Jump, and the next second, the god of fortune boy came to the bamboo forest. There were several special figures in the bamboo forest that attracted the attention of the god of fortune boy. Of those figures, one figure is underground, one figure is transparent and hidden among a few bamboos, another figure is hiding in the stream, and one figure is hidden in the mist. Even from the perspective of a summoner, it is almost impossible to spot these figures, because these figures are summoners in the state of casting spells, hiding in the bamboo forest in different forms, as if they do not exist. Just the same, it was only in the eyes of the god of fortune that those summoners became more noticeable. In addition to those summoners, there are also murderous intentions hidden in the bamboo forest. On the ground and underground of the bamboo forest, the bamboo leaves, thousands of bamboo bodies, streams, and mist are filled with various deadly spells, traps, and obstacles. There are many, one on top of another, and there are powerful summoners ambushing them. Anyone who wants to sneak into the jungle and sneak into Hongyi Villa will only die. The lucky boy walked around the bamboo forest and looked at all the traps. The next second, he flashed out of the bamboo forest and came back to the carriage that had just entered Hongyi Villa. The carriage has stopped in a parking lot specifically for carriages behind the bamboo forest. The door of the carriage opened, and a fat man with a big belly, white hair, black hair, and no wrinkles on his face stepped out of the carriage. This man, with his official air, looked like he was in a high position and pampered. A tall, thin man in black clothes and two 11 or 12-year-old boys with red lips and white teeth greeted him at the car door. The two boys were extremely handsome, but their eyes were dull. "Master Li, it's been a long time." Seeing the fat man with a big belly and white body get out of the car, the tall and thin man came over with a smile. "Hey, the city has been in a mess these past 2 days. Your Majesty is very angry. You adults have no time to spare. I can only accompany you. I went through several rounds of inspections on the road just now. I have to go back tonight," that Mr. Li said. Bian said as he walked away. "I understand. Everything has been arranged for you. It is all fresh and will not delay your time. Please come with me." Master Li followed the tall and thin man towards a nearby villa. The tall and thin man walked Mr. Li to the door of the villa, and then made a gesture of invitation. "Everything is inside, just go in and enjoy it." "The effect of the immortal blood essence last time was not very good," Mr. Li said critically. "Don't worry, Mr. Li, we have replaced a new batch. This time, Mr. Li will know the immortal blood essence once he tries it." "Ha ha ha ha, so good, so good." When he heard about the new eternal blood essence, Mr. Li's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but licked his lips, and he couldn't wait to push away the villa gate. What Mr. Li didn't know was that the God of Fortune boy was sitting on his head and followed him into the room. There is a red box on the table in the room on the first floor of the villa. Mr. Li was very familiar with it. He walked straight to the table and opened the box directly. There is a transparent glass bottle in the box that is as thick as a thumb and as long as a palm. Next to the glass bottle are two pieces of ice that are emitting a hint of coldness. The glass bottle is filled with blood-red liquid, which seems to be blood. Seeing the glass bottle, Mr. Li eagerly picked up the glass bottle, opened the mouth of the bottle, opened his mouth, and poured all the blood-red liquid in the glass bottle into his mouth without leaking. And licked his lips in recollection. After drinking the liquid in the bottle, Mr. Li sat on the sofa next to him with his eyes closed, seeming to appreciate the taste of the liquid in the bottle. Under the gaze of the God of Fortune, in less than 5 minutes, that Mr. Li's face began to glow, as if he was suddenly filled with energy, and the fine wrinkles at the corners of his eyes seemed to have been smoothed away. "What a good thing!" Mr. Li sighed contentedly. The lucky boy jumped on the table, stretched out his finger, and touched the glass bottle that Mr. Li had just taken. The blood in the bottle is human blood, but it is not ordinary human blood, but the blood of children. The blood is different from ordinary blood. The blood seems to have almost divine power in it. After touching the little bit of blood left in the bottle, Fukugamai Toko instantly sensed where the owner of the blood was. He disappeared in the room of the villa with just a flash of his body. The next second, the God of Fortune boy appeared in a dark underground cell. "No, don't. Help. Mom, Mom, I want Mom. Ah, it hurts, it hurts." The underground cell was like hell. There were iron cages everywhere on both sides of the passage, and inside the iron cages, children were locked in the narrow iron cages like raised animals, crying loudly. With rows of iron cages are placed side by side, like a breeding farm. This is hell for children. As soon as the God of Fortune appeared, what filled the ears of the God of Fortune were countless screams and begging for mercy. Those screams and begging for mercy all came from the countless children in the cages in this underground cell. The children, both boys and girls, were over 3 and under 10 years old. Each child was locked in an iron cage. Some were hung upside down by iron chains. They had countless wounds on their bodies. They are being fed drugs, some are having blood drawn from their bodies, and some are suffering unimaginable abuse. At first glance, it seems that there are thousands of children locked up in this dungeon. Everything here is going on in an orderly manner like an assembly line. A group of people in white clothes are busy here. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 330. The lucky boy quickly found the owner of the plasma. It was a little boy of 6 or 7 years old. He was hung upside down on an iron frame without any body parts. Long black thorns flashing with runes were piercing into various organs in the little boy's body. The man in white clothes was inserting a huge needle into the little boy's body and extracting fresh plasma from the little boy's body. This blood bag has drawn 3 tubes of immortal blood today. It's okay. A man in white said after drawing 3 tubes of plasma. Then he waved his hand and asked others to put the unconscious little boy down from the iron frame. After coming down, he was given a pill and then thrown into the iron cage and taken away. In the same room, there is more than one person whose blood is being drawn. Right next to the little boy who was being taken away, there was another little girl of 5 or 6 years old who was also suffering inhuman abuse. The little girl was as skinny as a stick, with huge dark circles around her eyes. Her eyes had lost any sparkle, leaving only turbidity and fear. Several vital points on her body were like those of the boy who was taken away. There were black spikes, and several other men in white clothes were inserting a needle into the little girl's body, drawing blood from the little girl, and pumping the plasma into the glass bottle wrapped in ice. The little girl's body was trembling slightly, the light in her eyes was getting darker and darker, and the amount of blood that could be drawn out was becoming less and less. This blood bag is no longer good. If you give it a final stimulation, you should be able to squeeze out some immortal blood essence," said a man who was drawing blood. After hearing this, a man next to him took out a red-hot hook from the stove nearby and stabbed it under the little girl's abdomen. A burnt smell wafted up. The little girl trembled, struggled, and screamed, and some new plasma suddenly gushes out of the needle that was already free of blood. But in the blink of an eye, the little girl's scarred body lost all vitality. She was put down from the shelf by people in white clothes. She was thrown randomly on a trolley like garbage and sent to a nearby store. A cave, thrown into the cave. There is a pond in the cave, and there are dozens of red-eyed crocodile horned beasts in the pond. Each of the crocodile horned beasts is 7 or 8 meters long, shaped like a crocodile, with horns on its head and an open mouth full of sharp teeth. The little girl's body was thrown down and fell into the water. Several crocodile horned beasts were fighting, tearing, and rolling in the cave. In the blink of an eye, a crocodile horned beast swallowed the little girl in one bite. In the blink of an eye, the crocodile horned beast was all gone. Nothing left. After a while, the bodies of 2 more children were pushed in a small cart and thrown into the murky and bloody pool of the cave, ushering in a new round of competition from the crocodile horned beasts. The next second, the figure of the god of fortune left the hell-like dungeon and appeared outside. A black carriage was parked in a closed warehouse of Hongyi Villa. Several people were busy working on it. The carriage was easily lifted from the frame by the pendant tower in the warehouse. There was a mezzanine at the bottom of the carriage. There are several boxes placed in the mezzanine. With such an arrangement, even if someone gets on the carriage, they won't be able to inspect it unless the person inspecting it dismantles the carriage. The busy people here took out the boxes from the mezzanine under the carriage and opened the boxes. In each box, there was a motionless child. The man driving the carriage complained, "Guanchi, the inspections in the capital are too strict now. We can only transport things up in this way. It takes too much time, and it is not as easy to send goods from other places as before. Well, this month, several goods have died on the way, and they still need to be dealt with. Wait a moment, it won't take long before order in Shangjing City will be restored." A bald man said. Then he checked the children in the box and saw that they were all still there. Alive, he nodded slightly and signaled, and someone immediately came over to take the children away. The god of fortune boy flashed and disappeared from the warehouse. The next second, the god of fortune boy appeared in another room. 3 men were drinking the scarlet liquid from crystal glasses in this room and chatting. Your Majesty, this special budget plan has caused you to worry. His Highness Prince Jing has already made a commitment to the Black Cloud Fleet and the 11th Army. You will not embarrass His Highness Prince Jing. This is a bit difficult. What if Mr. Wu disagrees? If Mr. Wu makes a fuss, will it be difficult for the prince to explain it? A man drinking scarlet liquid said, looking a little embarrassed. Your Majesty, please rest assured that Prince Jing has returned. As for Mr. Wu, Prince Jing will personally resolve the matter. Your Majesty, you just need to agree. As long as Your Majesty signs it, Mr. Wu will not interfere. This matter will become a fait accompli. Your Majesty will not interfere in such matters, and the Crown Prince has nothing to say. Please don't forget which side you are on. Then, okay. This, Mr. Lin, I've been feeling a little low on energy recently, I'm a bit older. Sir Ling sighed with emotion. This is done, your lord's supply of immortal blood essence will be doubled next year. Ha ha ha, okay, okay. Sir Ling nodded with satisfaction. Manager Lin, who had just made a promise to Lord Ling, looked at the other person next to him. Sir Song, the police want you to be more careful. The police in Dashang State are investigating too closely. We have the immortal blood essence here, the supply is not so smooth. Recently, several of our people who went out to do business have been arrested by the police in various places, which is a bit troublesome. Mr. Song smiled flatteringly. Don't worry, Manager Lin, I have recently asked someone to study it, and there is a way to prevent the people below from running into trouble. Oh, what can I do? Mr. Lin can tell you that if those who go to do things in the future are caught by the police, they will pretend that they are mentally ill and have abnormal brains. I will give an order to the police everywhere. If they encounter a mentally ill person who commits a crime, like those who rob and abduct children, should release the patients as soon as possible. We should be tolerant to the mentally ill and do not pursue them. The children are fine anyway. The most important thing is to send the patients to the hospital as soon as possible, or let the patients' families come to claim them. The police in various places, who want to imprison them. Mental patients, I can cause trouble for them. Ha ha ha, Lord Song, this method is good. I will rely on Lord Song more in the future. When His Highness ascends the throne in the future, you will all be His Highness's heroes. It should, it should. The 3 people in the room laughed, clinked their glasses, and drank the scarlet liquid in the glass. The remaining scarlet liquid hung around the mouths of the 3 of them, as if they were eating people. In the secret room of Changle Lane, Xiaopingan suddenly opened his eyes. In any case, Xiaopingan never expected that what the god of fortune would see in Hongyi Villa would be the hell-like scene. Groups of abducted children were sent to Hongyi Villa. Under the ground of Hongyi Villa, all the children became the source of eternal blood essence and were suffering in human conditions. Extracting bile from live bears is cruel enough, but the fate of the children in Hongyi Villa is worse than that of bears locked in cages and having their bile removed. Xiaopingan knew what the eternal blood essence was. It was not magic, but a taboo technique about life that had been passed down since ancient times. All children before puberty will secrete a strange substance from their adrenaline when they are in extreme fear and pain. This strange substance derived from the secretion of children in moments of fear and pain is the legendary fountain of youth. Taking this fountain of youth, people will become young, full of youth and vitality. If you think that all missing children will be put up for adoption, then you are imagining the darkness and evil in this world too beautifully and kindly. The person who controls Hongyi Villa is Prince Jing, whom Xiaopingan has never met, and Baitang Wangchuan's brother. Prince Jing hid behind the scenes, but used the eternal blood essence of Hongyi Villa to control and win over a large number of high-ranking officials in the Great Shang Kingdom. This Red Leaf Villa involves the royal family of the Great Shang Kingdom, as well as countless high-ranking officials and dignitaries in Shangjing City. Once it is revealed, the entire Shangjing city will face a huge earthquake. Do you have the ability to shake such a large interest group? In the secret room, Xiaoping's gaze became deeper and deeper and colder.